Bronny James has been involved in plenty of controversies, but nothing like this. After a heated backstage clash with the Lakers, cameras appeared to catch him struggling to hold back his emotions. So what happened behind the scenes? Let me break it down. Start with the footage everyone's been passing around. It's from a Lakers game against the Milwaukee Bucks, and on the surface, it looks like nothing. A rookie guard getting a pep talk from his head coach. Then a second camera angle surfaced, different position, closer mic, and suddenly the pep talk reads very differently. Head coach JJ Redick gave Bronny James the second start of his NBA career against the Milwaukee Bucks, and extra coverage is always placed on the Lakers for LeBron James' son trying to earn playing time. But the situation grew worse when a recent video from a different camera angle showed just how angry Redick got at the second-year player. Bronny had been quiet offensively. Bronny was criticized for not taking enough shots and looking clueless on offense a couple of times during the start. That's the part everyone saw live. What they didn't see until the second angle dropped was the tone Redick used to correct it. A Lakers Facebook page summed up the temperature of it in one line. Things got heated on the sideline when JJ Redick erupted after a Bronny James pass went sideways. That's not a coach quietly coaching. That's a coach losing it on camera at the most scrutinized rookie in the league. Here's what makes it land differently than a normal sideline blow-up. Redick didn't come up through the coaching ranks quietly. Redick has been accused of being too close to LeBron ever since the Lakers hired him shortly after the two hosted a popular podcast together, highlighting their basketball intelligence. So every eye in the building and every phone recording from the stands was already primed to ask one question: would this coach actually hold LeBron's son accountable, or would he coddle him? The Milwaukee game answered that question loudly. The coach calling out Bronny and treating him like any other player proved that Redick wasn't overlooking the mistakes of LeBron's son, and the benching that followed wasn't symbolic. Bronny only played 10 minutes for the Lakers against Milwaukee, despite suiting up with the starting lineup, because Redick lost faith in James due to the multiple times he refused to shoot. 10 minutes as a starter. That's the kind of number that tells you everything about how a coach actually feels, no matter what gets said to reporters afterward. Redick's frustration, according to people around the situation, wasn't really about a missed shot here or there. It was about hesitation. Only 2 shot attempts from Bronny proved he was clearly in his own head and refused to take what the defense gave him, even though James is supposed to have the skill set of playing strong defense and hitting open shots. And Redick was livid about one of the 2 things Bronny should feel comfortable doing: being so far out of his comfort zone that night. For a coach who built his own playing career on fearlessly letting shots fly, watching a player pass up open looks over and over apparently hit a nerve. Redick's playing career saw him as a shooter who never feared taking an open shot, an all-time great three-point marksman. Different generation of guard, same expectation. And Bronny wasn't the only one showing frustration that night. His own teammates felt it too. Luka Doncic also showed visible frustration about setting a teammate up with a pass that ultimately led to nothing. When your MVP caliber teammate is visibly annoyed at your hesitation on the same floor your coach just yelled at you on, that's not a one-man problem anymore. That's a room starting to notice. The follow-up game against Utah didn't offer much relief either. Tonight's Lakers game against Utah saw them on the court for the first time since Redick pulled Bronny on Saturday, and with LeBron returning to the starting lineup and playing 30 minutes, that meant less time from most of the role players. Bronny did get to follow his father onto the court, but he only received 3 minutes. 3 minutes after a night where he'd been benched down to 10. The math on his opportunities was shrinking, not growing. There was one bright spot buried in those 3 minutes. Bronny didn't hesitate and hit his 1 3-point shot attempt from deep in his limited minutes. Unfortunately, a bigger issue saw James having 3 turnovers in those same 3 minutes, averaging 1 per minute. 1 clean makeup shot immediately swallowed by 3 turnovers. It's the kind of stat line that makes highlight reels feel cruel. You show growth for exactly 1 possession before the mistakes pile back on. What made the whole sequence sting more is what it revealed about Redick's larger plan. LeBron's return may help ease that pressure, especially since the Lakers' offense had run smoothly with Doncic and Reeves thriving, and Redick can easily play LeBron with more bench players, including his son. But if Bronny doesn't have strong minutes on the court with LeBron, it's hard to predict him turning things around. Translation: Bronny's clearest path to real minutes wasn't standing on his own merit. It was tethered to whether his dad happened to share the floor with him. That's a strange kind of ceiling for any player to operate under, let alone one being screamed at for hesitating. Public reaction split almost instantly along predictable lines. Some fans thought Redick was finally treating Bronny like an actual NBA player, instead of a novelty. Others thought benching a 21-year-old down to 10 minutes after one bad quarter, while cursing at him on a hot mic, was overkill for a kid who was still developing. Either way, the footage did what footage always does once it hits enough timelines. It turned a private coaching moment into a referendum on how Bronny James is treated inside his own building. And that's before you even get to how Bronny handled it, walking out of the arena that night. Word started spreading before the post-game media availability had even wrapped. A locker room source, cited by outlets tracking the Lakers beat, described a player who wasn't just frustrated, he was rattled. Posts referencing Bronny James breaking down in the locker room began circulating with details attributed to people close to the team, painting a picture of a young player who kept it together in front of cameras and reporters, then let the mask slip once the door closed. That's the part that doesn't show up on a stat sheet. A benching is public, a viral cursing clip is public, but the actual moment where a 21-year-old process is being screamed at by his coach, on a night his own draft classmates and teammates were watching, tends to happen somewhere the cameras can't follow. And when word of that moment leaks out anyway, it tells you the incident cut deeper than a normal in-game correction. Then came the response. Not from Redick doubling down, and not from Bronny lashing out. From Bronny going out of his way to look like the model teammate. At the exact moment fans expected him to look bitter. Weeks later in Chicago, that dynamic played out in front of a full arena. In the final minute of a game the Bulls were poised to lose at home. The crowd of roughly 21,000 was chanting, "We want Bronny." It was the kind of moment tailor-made for a feel-good storyline. Hometown adjacent kid gets his garbage time run. Crowd goes wild. Clip goes viral for the right reasons. Instead, Redick subbed in jarred Vanderbilt, which was apparently the most disrespectful thing the Lakers head coach could have done to Chicago that night. Bulls fans didn't hide their frustration. Vanderbilt's only 2 points that night came from a highlight dunk, and Chicago felt that moment should have belonged to Bronny. Boos rained down. This was the setup for Bronny to look snubbed, maybe even bitter, on national cameras. He didn't take the bait. As the boos rained down at Vanderbilt's return to the game, Bronny James was caught on camera giving a selfless, 3-word response, "We want Vando," smiling and enthusiastically chanting back to the crowd instead of appearing dejected. Think about the contrast for a second. Weeks earlier, word is, he's breaking down behind closed doors over being cursed at and benched. Now he's standing in a hostile road arena, being denied his own moment, in front of a chanting crowd, and instead of sulking, he's the one leading the cheer for a teammate. That's not the behavior of a kid who's checked out. If anything, it's a kid actively managing how the outside world perceives his frustration, even while it's clearly still there underneath. Redick has been often under fire for Bronny running back and forth between the G League and the main roster, and when people question why Redick doesn't put LeBron James' son in the game, Bronny showed he stands by his coach anyway. That's a loyalty test very few 21-year-olds would pass gracefully, especially ones who'd already had a rough month of public scrutiny. Reporters pressed him on how he was processing the stretch of benchings and viral clips, and Bronny's answer leaned toward acceptance rather than defiance. A video had surfaced on social media of Redick yelling at Bronny to shoot the basketball, and rather than pushing back on the coach publicly, James was put in the Lakers' rotation due to the multiple injuries the organization had dealt with, and frankly, he did fine with his time on the court. While he still had plenty to learn, that wasn't too big of a surprise given how young he was, and only being in his second season. He also addressed the mechanics of what Redick was actually asking of him, framing it less like an attack and more like tough love. Day by day, James said he was focused on getting better, no matter what that might entail, admitting that Redick was trying to make him a better shooter, and that when the ball gets to him and he's open, he's got to take it. No hesitation, no second guessing. That's a mature answer for someone who, by multiple accounts, had just gone through one of the more publicly humiliating stretches of his young career. But composure in front of a microphone and composure behind a locker room door are two different things, and the reporting suggests those two versions of Bronny didn't always match. In public, acceptance. In private, according to people close to the situation, something closer to the breaking point. And here's the thing about breaking points in a family this famous. They rarely stay contained to one person. Because while Bronny was managing his own frustration with Redick, another version of that same tension was playing out in real time on the actual court between Bronny and the one person whose opinion of him matters more than any coach's, his father. If the Reddit clip showed the pressure coming from above, a different piece of footage months later showed it coming from somewhere far more personal. His own father's bench reaction during a live possession. The Lakers were hosting the Golden State Warriors. Tight game, and midway through it, a single pass changed the entire tone of the broadcast. With 4:43 remaining and the Lakers holding a narrow 41-39 lead, Bronny attempted a post-entry pass to DeAndre Ayton that went off target and resulted in a turnover. Broadcasters caught it instantly. Cameras then captured LeBron on the bench reacting with visible frustration, shaking his head and looking down, a moment that quickly circulated across social media. That's a different kind of clash than the Reddit footage. There's no yelling, no cursing, nothing overtly confrontational, but a father visibly shaking his head at his son's mistake in an NBA arena, with cameras trained on exactly that spot. That's its own kind of backstage tension spilling into public view. The reaction stood out given the unique dynamic of a father and son, sharing the court in an NBA game, and appeared to be an immediate reaction to the breakdown in execution, during a live possession rather than a prolonged exchange. What made it sting more was the contrast with what had happened just minutes earlier in the same game. In the first quarter, Bronny recorded an assist to LeBron on a fast break play, marking the first son-to-father assist in NBA history. Bronny secured a steal and delivered the pass ahead, allowing LeBron to finish with an uncontested dunk. One quarter, he's making history alongside his dad. A few possessions later, he's the reason his dad is shaking his head on a nationally broadcast bench cam. The sequence between LeBron and Bronny underscored the realities of competition at this stage of the season. In a high-pressure environment, every possession matters, and even historic moments can quickly give way to the demands of execution. That whiplash, assist to history, turnover to shame, in the same half, is close to the whole story of Bronny's 2 seasons in miniature. The good moments get overshadowed almost instantly by the standard everyone expects him to fail to meet. And Reddick's temper wasn't reserved for Bronny alone, which matters for understanding whether this was really about the son or about the coach. Weeks after the Milwaukee blow-up, a very similar scene played out with a veteran, not a rookie. Beyond the scoreboard in a separate game, broadcast cameras caught a visible, vocal argument between Reddick and forward Jared Vanderbilt on the sideline that spilled into the post-game press conference. The details of that one were almost cinematic in how fast it escalated. Just 16 seconds into the second quarter, after a missed shot, Reddick called a timeout specifically to pull Vanderbilt from the game and sent Dalton Knecht to replace him. When Vanderbilt realized he was being pulled, he confronted Reddick near the free throw line, while the coach was using a whiteboard to diagram a play. It got physical enough that people had to intervene. Assistant coach Nate McMillan and Austin Reeves, who was out with an injury, had to step between them to stop the argument. Reddick downplayed it publicly, the same way coaches always do. The second-year coach addressed it directly after the game, describing the incident as a confluence of things and calling it routine on his end. When reporters pushed for specifics, he stonewalled. When pressed on what specifically Vanderbilt did wrong during the post-game press conference, Reddick declined to be specific and said, "Just a confluence of things." Vanderbilt didn't stick around to give his side. He reportedly left the arena before reporters could talk to him, leaving Reddick to address the situation alone. So by the time you line up the Milwaukee cursing clip, the Bronny locker room reports, LeBron's bench head shake, and the Vanderbilt sideline confrontation, a pattern starts to form. This isn't a coach who singles out Bronny for special harshness because he's LeBron's son. If anything, it's the opposite. Reddick appears to run a program where nobody, not a legacy rookie, not a 9-year veteran, gets a pass for a bad possession. Whether Vanderbilt plays going forward is unclear, but his relationship with the coaching staff looked shaky heading into the postseason. The same uncertainty that's followed Bronny's own standing on the roster. That consistency actually makes the earlier viral clip land differently in hindsight. It wasn't proof that Reddick was targeting Bronny. It was proof that Bronny was finally being held to the same unforgiving standard as everyone else in that locker room. The standard his own last name had always made people wonder if he'd ever actually face. But knowing your coach treats you like anyone else doesn't make the pressure disappear. If anything, it raises the stakes, because now there's no excuse left to hide behind. And just as Bronny seemed to be settling into that harder, fairer standard, the ground underneath his entire situation shifted completely, because the one person who'd made his presence on that roster make sense in the first place was about to walk out the door. Everything up to this point, The cursing, the benching, the bench cam head shake, the locker room reports happened while Bronny still had one enormous safety net underneath him. His father was on the same roster, in the same building, every single night. That net got pulled out from under him with almost no warning. ESPN's Shams Charania reported that LeBron James has informed the Lakers he will be playing elsewhere during the 2026-27 season, ending an 8-year run in Los Angeles. The business of basketball, already set in motion, accelerated almost immediately, and the timing of it, relative to Bronny's own contract situation, made the whole thing feel almost engineered for maximum tension. Just one day before that news broke, the Lakers had faced a separate, quieter deadline about Bronny himself. As James headed into the third season of his 4-year rookie deal, only $1,258,873 of his $2,296,271 contract was guaranteed, and the Lakers had to decide to fully guarantee the deal or waive him by June 29. They decided on the former, as he remained on the roster. Bronny's salary for the 2026-27 season became fully guaranteed after Los Angeles declined to waive him before the contract deadline, and less than 24 hours later, LeBron notified the franchise of his decision to leave. Less than a day, the organization commits real money to keeping Bronny around, and before the ink is even dry on that decision emotionally, his father tells the same front office he's gone. Bronny's $2.3 million salary for the 2026-27 campaign became guaranteed on Monday, a day before ESPN's report that LeBron informed the Lakers he would play elsewhere next season, while the 22-time All-Star's next move became the NBA's biggest storyline. Some turned their attention to Bronny's fate. The Lakers moved fast to reassure people this wasn't a coincidence working against Bronny. ESPN reported there was no immediate indication that the Lakers planned to move the 21-year-old guard, who was expected to continue his development under coach JJ Redick, who had spent significant time working with him since arriving in Los Angeles. For now, LeBron's exit changes the family storyline, but not the Lakers' plans for Bronny. The franchise has already guaranteed his contract and appears committed to letting him continue his growth in Los Angeles under Redick's staff. But committed to letting him continue his growth is a very different sentence than the one that used to define Bronny's roster spot. For 2 seasons, the honest read around the league was straightforward. It was always clear that the team selected Bronny James in the 2024 NBA draft, partially as a favor to LeBron to help him make unique history. The former USC guard wasn't considered much of a draft prospect at the time, immensely unproven for the pros after health concerns in college. That favor now has an expiration date attached to it, because the man the favor was for isn't walking through that locker room door anymore. Should James retire or head elsewhere, he'd potentially be leaving something significant behind. In Los Angeles, his son. There's a version of this where the Lakers simply cut ties. It would have been financially trivial. If the Lakers had waived Bronny before the deadline, they would have saved about $1 million. Instead, they leaned the other way, and the reasoning offered afterward wasn't sentimental, it was basketball. Even if the draft pick was a bit of a reach, James has increasingly proven himself as a capable NBA guard. When the Lakers saw their 2-star guards go down with injuries this season, Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, JJ Redick filled some of those minutes with James. Bronny's own numbers backed up at least some of that read. The Los Angeles Lakers guard had averages of 2.9 points and 1.2 assists per contest while shooting 40.9% from the field and 38.6% from three-point range in 42 games during that second season. Modest, but real minutes, real shooting splits, not just garbage time. And in the G League, away from the glare, the production looked far more convincing. Over 25 regular season G League games across 2 years, Bronny averaged 18.4 points, 4.0 rebounds, 4.4 assists, and 1.5 steals per contest, while shooting 49.6% from the field and 41.3% from three-point range. Even so, nobody around the team pretended the emotional center of gravity hadn't shifted. After 8 years with the Los Angeles Lakers, LeBron James plans to continue his career elsewhere, and since he informed the Lakers of his intentions to move on, there has been speculation about what his decision means for the future of his son. League insiders started floating the idea that the two might not actually be separated for long. According to ESPN's Dave McMenamin, the Lakers could ultimately trade Bronny to whatever team LeBron decides to play for, so that the father-son duo could continue to play together. McMenamin's own reporting leaned into just how personal this had become for LeBron specifically. LeBron has spoken at length about how meaningful it's been to be teammates with his son, and those feelings only grew late last season when they shared the floor together. So it's easy to think the James family would want that connection to continue. Once LeBron makes his decision on his next team, there could be a subsequent move made with Bronny. So here's where Bronny actually stood once the dust settled on his father's exit. A guaranteed contract, a coach who'd already shown he'd curse him out, just like anyone else. A locker room that had reportedly seen him crack under the weight of it once already. And now, on top of all of that, total uncertainty about whether he'd even be playing in the same building as his own dad again. That's a lot for anyone to carry quietly. And plenty of people around the league weren't planning on letting him carry it quietly at all. Once LeBron's departure became official, the conversation around Bronny stopped being about shooting mechanics or sideline tempers and turned into something much blunter. Does he even belong in the league anymore, now that the reason everyone assumed he was there is gone? Rob Parker didn't dance around it. Talking on his own program, he went as far as suggesting retirement was the dignified way out. He argued that once the situation runs its course, the Lakers would eventually move on from him and simply pay out what's left of the deal to make it go away, adding that the entire arrangement had only existed as a favor to his father, and asking pointedly what Bronny had actually done to earn any of it beyond that. It's about as harsh a read as you'll hear from a national voice, delivered without much hedging. Former NBA journeyman Theo Pinson took a similar stance, though from the angle of a player who'd actually lived on the roster fringes himself. Pinson believes that Bronny's NBA career is over now that LeBron is no longer with the Lakers, arguing that no matter how much people keep invoking the James name, it means nothing to general managers once LeBron's gone. He framed it as speaking up for other players just as deserving of a roster spot. Some in that conversation even suggested a team would only give Bronny another shot because of who he is and what he brings to a franchise in jersey sales and revenue, not because of what shows up on the stat sheet. But not everyone piled on. Fox Sports analyst Nick Wright pushed back hard, and specifically on Pinson's numbers. Nick Wright of Fox Sports defended Bronny James from Theo Pinson, saying he'd put his money on Bronny, finishing his career with more games played and points scored than Pinson ever recorded. Pinson didn't take that quietly either, firing back at Wright's credentials as someone who'd never actually played competitive basketball himself. The numbers behind that argument are worth sitting with for a second. Pinson scored 346 points in 127 games across 5 NBA seasons, while Bronny is entering his third year in the league with 184 points in 69 games. Bronny's already roughly halfway to matching a 5-year veteran's career point total in a fraction of the seasons, while everyone around him keeps declaring the whole thing finished. Even inside that same podcast argument, other former players weren't willing to write him off. Charlie Villanueva, Raymond Felton, and Deron Williams joined Pinson in dissecting Bronny's future, and the disagreement wasn't unanimous the way Pinson framed it publicly. Fans noticed the inconsistency too, and some pointed out Pinson's own history of criticizing other young players, which left many fans disappointed by his remarks, with some accusing him of using LeBron and Bronny to generate attention for the podcast. Through all of it, Bronny's own public words have stayed remarkably steady, almost stubbornly so compared to the noise around him. Asked directly what he felt he'd proven during a season where he'd been cursed at, benched to 10 minutes, and picked apart on national television, his answer wasn't defensive. He said simply that he wanted to show he could play at a higher level, that it was something he'd been working toward for a couple of years, and that he'd managed to do it more this year than the year before, calling it a good year overall. That's not the language of someone who feels the whole thing is a favor running out the clock. It's the language of someone who genuinely believes the last 2 seasons were building towards something real, separate from his father's shadow entirely. Where things actually stand right now is somewhere between Parker's dismissal and Wright's confident bet. As a second-round pick, James remains under contract with the Lakers for 2026-27. If nothing changes with his outlook, he's set to return to the team next season, and he isn't the average backup guard the roster spot would normally suggest. With Bronny under contract, the Lakers would have to move him in some fashion, likely via trade if they weren't bringing him back. Otherwise, expect him to return to Los Angeles next season, even without his father. The Lakers themselves have been about as clear as an NBA front office ever gets, about not treating this as charity anymore. Rather than releasing him for the cap savings, the Lakers stood their ground and made the call to keep Bronny around. And while many will argue he got the spot because of LeBron, holding that up as the continued reason is simply not accurate at this point. There was no real reason for the Lakers to give up on Bronny this early, given he's already exceeded expectations for a 55th overall pick by sticking around and developing in the G League into a player getting real playoff minutes, not garbage time. The young guard has been a genuine story of continued growth for the franchise. So the actual door hasn't closed. It doesn't rule out Bronny asking for a trade if he hopes to rejoin his father, should the Lakers be willing to comply, and in the meantime, he'll be making just over $2.2 million next season, a modest number by league standards, sitting underneath one of the loudest ongoing debates in basketball about whether he's earned every dollar of it or none of it. What's clear is that the version of Bronny James walking into next season isn't the same one who got cursed at in that Milwaukee huddle. He's been benched, defended, doubted out loud by a 5-year veteran, backed publicly by a national analyst, and left to figure out, for the first time in his entire basketball life, what it means to share a locker room without his father down the hall. The clash that broke him down behind closed doors didn't end his run in Los Angeles. If anything, it's the reason everyone's still watching to see what he does with the minutes he's got left to prove. It wasn't just his name that got him here. Sources: LeBron James's brutal reaction to Bronny James' turnover goes viral during Lakers-Warriors clash. JJ Redick caught cursing at Bronny James for mistake. Lakers' Bronny James has perfect mindset. After viral video of JJ Redick yelling at him, JJ Redick explains heated exchange with Jared Vanderbilt after benching. Bronny James makes 3-word gesture after JJ Redick disrespects 21,000 Bulls fans. Things got heated on the sideline when JJ Redick erupted. After a Bronny James pass, Bronny James broke down in the locker room, according to sources. What's next for Bronny James now that LeBron James is leaving Lakers? Bronny James's future with Lakers gets major update following departure of LeBron James. Why Bronny James and his Lakers' future will be impacted by LeBron James' 2026-27 decision. Lakers' stance on Bronny James is crystal clear after crucial contract decision. Lakers make decision on contract of Bronny James. LeBron James's Lakers exit raises new questions about Bronny's future. Lakers make Bronny James contract decision that could signal LeBron plans. Los Angeles Lakers star Bronny James urged to retire by NBA pundit. Lakers guard Bronny James gets harsh reality check from ex-NBA player Nick Wright. Ex-Mavericks wing exchange jabs. As analyst makes bold bet on Bronny James's NBA future, https://www.profootballnetwork.com's 0NBA0 Nick Wright ex-Mavericks wing exchange jabs analyst makes bold bet Bronny James NBA future LeBron James Lakers exact July 2026.